The courtroom was quiet. Across the room sat Jack, tired, a shadow of the man he used to be. The judge's voice echoed through the room as she read the final decision. The court grants full custody to Elizabeth Parker, along with sole ownership of the marital home and a monthly child support arrangement effective immediately. When the hearing ended, Jack approached her in the hallway. His voice was low, pleading. "Lizzy, please, can we talk?" Before we continue, please do us a favor of giving this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for keep more interesting stories coming your way. Also, let us know where you're watching from in the comments section.
Now let's get back to the story. Soft music floated through the room, blending with bursts of laughter and the faint scent of vanilla cake. Pink and white balloons hung from the ceiling, and a golden banner that read "Baby Girl" shimmered under the lights. Lizzy stood in the middle of it all, glowing with joy. Her soft pink dress wrapped perfectly around her round belly. She looked beautiful, not because of the makeup or the decorations, but because happiness lit her from within. This was her day, her baby shower, the day she dreamed of ever since she found out she was going to be a mother. Her friends and family surrounded her, clapping as she unwrapped tiny gifts: baby clothes, blankets, stuffed animals. Her heart felt full. Only one person was missing: Jack, her husband. He had promised he wouldn't miss this for the world. He was supposed to be here, standing beside her, celebrating their baby. But as the minutes turned into hours, Lizzy's smile began to fade a little. Susan, her best friend, noticed. "He'll come, Lizzy," she said softly, giving her a hand to squeeze. "Maybe he got caught up at work." Lizzy nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, maybe." But deep down, an uneasy feeling was growing. Then, suddenly, the door opened. Everyone turned. Jack stepped inside, dressed in a dark suit, clean-shaven, calm. But something was off. His face was cold, distant. The warmth Lizzy was used to seeing in his eyes was gone. The room quieted. Even the music stopped. Lizzy felt her heart race. "Jack, you made it," she said, relief breaking through her nervousness. But Jack didn't smile. He walked toward her, expression unreadable. In his hand, he held a brown envelope. Lizzy frowned slightly. "What's that?" Jack took a deep breath. "Lizzy, I think it's time we stop pretending." Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" He handed her the envelope. "You'll understand." Confused, Lizzy slowly opened it. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a stack of papers. Her eyes caught the first word, and the air in her lungs disappeared. Divorce petition. It felt like the world froze. The laughter, the chatter, the celebration, all vanished into silence. The only sound Lizzy could hear was the rapid beating of her own heart. "Jack," she whispered, her voice cracking, "you're doing this now, at our baby shower." He didn't look at her. It's better to end things now than drag them on. Susan gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Guests exchanged shocked glances, unsure whether to leave or stay. Lizzy felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She pressed a hand against her belly, feeling her baby's tiny kick, a reminder that she wasn't alone. She swallowed hard, trying to speak through the lump in her throat. "You could have done this privately, Jack. Not here, not like this." He said nothing. Lizzy looked at him for a long moment. The man she thought she knew, the man she trusted. Then, slowly, her trembling stopped. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and took a deep breath. "Thank you, Jack. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The room went completely silent. Even Jack looked startled. Lizzy folded the papers, handed them back to him, and added, "But not today. Today isn't about you. It's about my baby." Then she turned away, calm, composed, unbroken. Susan rushed to her side, wrapping an arm around her. Lizzy gave her a faint smile and whispered, "I'll be okay." She walked to the cake, gently rested her hand on her belly, and whispered to her unborn child, "We're gonna be fine. Mommy's stronger than he'll ever know." And in that moment, beneath the soft glow of pink balloons, Lizzy made herself a silent promise. This heartbreak won't destroy me. It will make me unstoppable.
That night, after everyone left, Lizzy sat alone in the living room, surrounded by half-deflated balloons and untouched plates of food. The baby shower decorations that once made her heart flutter now felt like reminders of a dream that had crumbled in front of everyone. Her eyes were swollen, her heart numb. The divorce papers lay on the coffee table, mocking her every time she looked at them. She kept replaying the scene over and over, Jack's cold expression, the gasps, the whispers. Every detail stabbed at her like a knife. "How could he?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "After everything we've been through?" Lizzy closed her eyes and drifted back to the beginning, to the days when Jack's smile used to make her feel safe. They met 7 years ago at a small coffee shop near her college. He was confident, charming, always talking about big dreams and success. She loved his ambition. He made her believe they were a team, that nothing could ever come between them. Back then, he used to bring her breakfast when she studied late, leave notes in her books, tell her she was his forever. But forever, it seemed, had an expiration date. After they got married, things were good for a while. They bought a small house, started building their future. Then Jack's career took off. Late nights became normal. Business trips turned into excuses. And slowly, he started slipping away. Lizzy would wait up for him, dinners growing cold on the table. When she asked what was wrong, he'd brush her off. "Don't start, Lizzy, I'm tired." She told herself it was just stress, that he'd come around. But deep down, something fell off. And now, she knew why. The sound of the front door opening snapped her back to reality. It was Susan, carrying a bag of food and a worried look on her face. "Hey," Susan said softly, setting the bag down. "You shouldn't be alone right now." Lizzy tried to smile. "I'm fine, really." But Susan wasn't convinced. "Fine? Lizzy, he humiliated you in front of everyone. Who does that? He's been cold for months, and now this?" Lizzy looked away, tears threatening again. "I just don't understand. What did I do wrong?" Susan sighed, her eyes softening. "You didn't do anything wrong. He did. And there's something you need to know." Lizzy frowned. "What do you mean?" Susan hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "I didn't want to tell you unless I was sure, but, Lizzy, Jack's been seeing someone." Lizzy froze. Her heart dropped into her stomach. "What?" she whispered. Susan handed her the phone. There it was. Photos, messages, Jack and another woman, his assistant from work, smiling, holding hands. A picture of them at a restaurant Lizzy and Jack once called their spot. For a long moment, Lizzy didn't move, didn't cry, didn't scream. Her body felt hollow, as if her soul had slipped away. Finally, she placed the phone down, wiped her tears, and whispered, "I should have known." Susan reached out to comfort her, but Lizzy stood up, her eyes different now, steady, sharp, alive. Something had changed. "I'm done crying," Lizzy said quietly. "If he wants to throw me away, he'll regret it. I'm not just going to survive this, I'm going to rise from it." Susan nodded slowly, a hint of pride in her eyes. "That's the Lizzy I know." Lizzy looked down at her belly, gently rubbing it as her baby kicked. I'm doing this for her, for us." She walked to the coffee table, picked up the divorce papers, and placed them neatly in a drawer. Not to forget them, but to remind herself of what she would overcome. That night, as the rain tapped softly against the windows, Lizzy lay awake, whispering to her unborn child, "Mommy's not broken, sweetheart. Mommy's just getting started." Before she knew it, it was dawn already. The morning sun slipped through the curtains, painting soft lines of gold across the living room. She hadn't slept much, but she didn't feel weak anymore. She felt focused. The tears were gone. The confusion had turned into something sharper. Clarity. Jack's betrayal had burned something inside her, but what remained was stronger than she ever imagined. As she poured herself a cup of tea, her phone buzzed. It was Susan. "How are you holding up?" Lizzy smiled faintly and replied, "I'm not falling apart anymore. I'm making plans." Because Lizzy had realized something. Crying over Jack wouldn't change what he did, but taking back her life, piece by piece, would. That day, she opened her laptop and started researching divorce laws, property rights, and financial settlements. Every article she read, every legal forum she visited, added fuel to her determination. Jack might think she was weak, but he was about to learn just how smart she really was. Lizzy gathered every document she could find. Bank statements, property deeds, even old emails. She created a folder labeled, "For the Lawyer." By the end of the week, she had contacted a reputable family attorney. The lawyer, a calm woman named Mrs. Green, listened carefully and said, "Lizzy, you've been through hell, but I promise you, we'll make sure you and your baby get everything you deserve." Those words became a lifeline. Meanwhile, Jock barely contacted her. When he did, it was short and cold. He'd moved out, claiming he needed space, but Lizzy already knew where that space was, probably filled with his assistant's perfume. Susan kept her company, refusing to let her sink into loneliness. Together they went for walks, shopped for baby clothes, and laughed more than Lizzy thought possible. One afternoon, while they folded tiny onesies, Susan said, "You know, you're handling this better than anyone I've ever seen." Lizzy smiled softly. "I can't fall apart, Susan. Not now. Not when I have her." Her hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked, a tiny reminder of why she had to keep fighting. Then came the next step. Lizzy stopped wearing her wedding ring. She took it off one morning, placed it in a drawer, and whispered, "You don't own me anymore." That simple act felt like a rebirth. She started taking better care of herself, walking more, eating healthier, journaling her thoughts every night. What had once been heartbreak was slowly transforming into power. She even enrolled in an online course in business management, something she'd always wanted to do but never had time for. "I'm building something," she told Susan, "not just for me, for my baby's future." But even as she rebuilt her life, Lizzy was preparing quietly for something bigger. She began documenting everything Jack did, the missed calls, the ignored messages, even rumors from mutual friends about his affair. Not out of spite, but out of strategy. Every lie he told would become a stepping stone toward her freedom. And through it all, she never let him see her anger. When he occasionally dropped by to collect things, Lizzy was calm, polite, even smiling. Jack mistook her silence for weakness. He didn't realize it was preparation. One evening after he left, Susan looked at her and said, "You're scaring me, Lizzy, in the best way." Lizzy chuckled softly. "He thinks I'm broken, but I'm just getting started." That night, as she stood by the window, watching city lights flicker in the distance, Lizzy placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "We're not victims, sweetheart. We're warriors." And soon he'll see what happens when a woman finds her strength. Outside, the wind howled softly, as if the world itself could feel the storm she was about to unleash.
A few weeks passed, and Lizzy was no longer the same woman who had stood frozen at her baby shower. She had grown calmer, sharper, a quiet storm wrapped in grace. Her days were spent between doctor's appointments, preparing the nursery, and working closely with her lawyer, Mrs. Green. Each meeting gave her more confidence that she was taking back control of her life. But there was still something that didn't sit right. Jack had gone silent. No calls, no visits, no messages about the baby. It was as if she didn't exist anymore. But Lizzy knew him too well. Jack was many things, but careless wasn't one of them. His silence felt like a cover. And she was right. One evening, Susan stopped by with takeout, as usual. They ate on the couch, surrounded by baby clothes and soft music. Susan scrolled through her phone, then suddenly frowned. "Lizzy, you're not going to believe this," she said, turning the screen toward her. It was a social media post. Jack and her, the assistant, smiling, champagne glasses in hand. The caption read, "New beginnings deserve celebration." Lizzy stared at the photo, her stomach tightening. But anger wasn't her first reaction this time. It was curiosity. New beginnings? What did that mean? She had a feeling it wasn't just about love. The next day, Lizzy called Mrs. Green. "I need to know everything Jack's been doing financially. Bank accounts, investments, all of it." Mrs. Green paused, then said, "You suspect something?" Lizzy's tone was calm. "I don't suspect, I know." Within a few days, the lawyer's team began pulling financial records, and when the report arrived, Lizzy felt her heart race. Jack had been transferring money, quietly, little by little, from their joint savings to a new account under someone else's name. The name was familiar. It was his assistant. The betrayal hit harder than any heartbreak. This wasn't just emotional cruelty. This was theft. He hadn't only planned to leave her, he had planned to leave her with nothing. That night, Lizzy sat alone, the papers spread across the table. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. For a long moment, she just stared at the documents. Then she whispered, "You really thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you, Jack?" Instead of breaking down, Lizzy picked up her phone and called Mrs. Green again. "I want every asset frozen," she said, her voice firm. "He's not touching another dollar until this is settled in court." Mrs. Green didn't hesitate. "Consider it done." The next morning, when Jack tried to make another transfer, his account access was denied. He called Lizzy, furious. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted over the phone. Lizzy smiled faintly. "Just taking care of what's mine and our babies." "You can't do that!" "Oh, I already did," she said calmly. "You handed me divorce papers, Jack. You made your choice." There was silence on the line, then a sharp exhale of frustration. Lizzy hung up, her heart pounding. It wasn't just victory, it was justice. In the following days, rumors started swirling around Jack's office. Someone had reported suspicious financial activity in the company accounts, and guess who was under review? Lizzy didn't spread it. She didn't need to. Karma had its own timing. Meanwhile, she kept her focus on peace, decorating the baby's room, attending prenatal yoga, and planning her small online business selling handmade baby items. One evening, Susan found her painting the nursery walls, a soft lilac. "You look different," Susan said with a smile. Lizzy turned, a streak of paint on her cheek. "I feel different." "What changed?"
Lizzy's smile deepened. I stopped waiting for karma and became it. As the night fell, she sat by the crib she'd built herself and whispered to her unborn daughter, "Mommy's not fighting out of anger anymore, sweetheart. Mommy's fighting for our peace." And outside, as the wind whispered through the trees, the world seemed to know Lizzy wasn't the same woman anymore. She was becoming unstoppable.
Jack had always been the man who thought he controlled everything: his job, his image, his marriage. But now, the world he'd built so carefully was beginning to fall apart. It started with whispers at work. His co-workers began to notice something: missing money, inconsistent reports. Then came the internal audit. Within days, Jack went from being the company's golden boy to the man everyone avoided in the hallway. Meanwhile, Lizzy's life was taking a very different turn. Her business, the little online shop she'd started with Susan's encouragement, was growing fast. She made and sold handmade baby blankets, and her gentle, heartfelt posts about motherhood drew in followers by the hundreds. Women resonated with her strength, her quiet resilience. Every sale was a victory, not just in money, but in freedom. One morning, as Lizzy packed a few orders to ship out, her phone buzzed. It was Jack. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. She picked up. "What do you want, Jack?" His voice was shaky, almost desperate. "We need to talk." Lizzy leaned against the counter. "About what? The divorce is nearly done." "I made a mistake. I've been under pressure. I shouldn't have ended things the way I did. We can fix this, Lizzy, for the baby." Lizzy stayed quiet for a few seconds, letting the words hang in the air. She could almost hear the panic behind his calm tone. Finally, she said softly, "Jack, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, and now you're facing the consequences." "Come on," he pleaded. "I lost my job. Clara, she's gone. I just need a second chance." Lizzy closed her eyes, and for a brief moment she felt a sting of pity. This was the man she once loved, the father of her child. But that pity faded as fast as it came. "Jack," she said firmly, "I begged you for a second chance when you stopped coming home. I begged you to talk to me before you humiliated me at my baby shower. You didn't listen then, so no, I'm not interested in fixing anything." He fell silent. Then she added, her voice calm but strong, "You thought I'd fall apart without you, but look around. I'm standing taller than ever." And with that, she ended the call. That evening, Susan stopped by with ice cream and a big grin. "Guess what?" she said, settling onto the couch. "Your ex just became the hottest office gossip. Apparently, the investigation's serious. They might press charges." Lizzy didn't smile cruelly. Instead, she let out a quiet breath. "I didn't want this for him. I just wanted peace." Susan shrugged. "Well, peace has an interesting way of finding people. Sometimes it arrives with consequences." They both laughed softly. Weeks passed, and Lizzy's business kept growing. She launched a new line, baby memory boxes, each hand-painted with messages of hope and strength. Orders poured in. Her story, though she never mentioned names, inspired thousands of women who had felt broken and found courage again. Every night as she packed orders, her baby's tiny kicks reminded her why she fought so hard. And one evening, while she sipped tea by the window, Susan said, "You know what's wild? You didn't just survive him, you outgrew him." Lizzy smiled, gazing out at the sunset. That's the thing about pain. If you use it right, it turns into power. Meanwhile, miles away, Jack sat alone in his apartment. The same man who once had it all, his phone buzzed with messages from the company's HR and lawyers.
but none from Lizzy. He scrolled through old photos of them, her laughter, her smile, her hand resting on her belly. And for the first time, he realized what he'd really lost. Not money, not status, but the only person who ever truly believed in him. Lizzy, unaware of his regret, smiled down at her swelling belly and whispered, "You and me, sweetheart, we're building something beautiful out of the ruins." And in that moment, surrounded by the soft hum of her growing business and the love of her unborn child, Lizzy knew the power had finally shifted.
Finally, they met in court to finalize the divorce. The courtroom was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with tension. Lizzy sat calmly, her belly now round and heavy, hands resting protectively over her baby bump. Her lawyer, Mrs. Green, sat beside her, flipping through papers with confidence. Across the room sat Jack, disheveled, tired, a shadow of the man he used to be. The expensive suits, the confident smirk, the polished charm, all gone. In their place was someone hollow, shaken, and very much aware that his world had slipped through his fingers. The judge's voice echoed through the room as she read the final decision. The court grants full custody to Elizabeth Parker, along with sole ownership of the marital home and a monthly child support arrangement effective immediately. Lizzy didn't smile. She simply exhaled, a long, quiet breath, one of closure. Jack's lawyer tried to argue, but it was useless. The evidence spoke for itself. His affair, the financial deception, the emotional cruelty. When the hearing ended, Jack approached her in the hallway. His voice was low, pleading. "Lizzy, please, can we talk?" She turned to him slowly. "About what?" "I've lost everything," he said, his eyes full of desperation. "The job, the money, the house, all gone. I don't even recognize myself anymore." Lizzy looked at him, her expression calm, composed. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. She said softly, "You didn't lose everything, Jack. You gave it away, piece by piece. Every lie, every betrayal, that's what cost you." He swallowed hard. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." She tilted her head. "You meant for me to break. You just didn't expect me to rebuild stronger." Jack looked down, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Lizzy. I really am." Lizzy's tone was steady, even gentle. "You taught me something, though, Jack, that love without respect is nothing, and that sometimes losing someone is the best thing that can happen to you." She stepped past him, pausing for just a second. "Take care of yourself, Jack. I hope one day you learn how to value what you have before it's gone." And with that, she walked away, not out of anger, but out of freedom. Weeks later, Lizzy was back home. Her baby room was ready, painted in soft lilac with little stars on the ceiling. She was surrounded by warmth, peace, and a quiet sense of victory. Her business had grown beyond what she ever imagined. Orders came in from across the country, women writing to her, sharing how her story inspired them to leave toxic relationships, to start over, to believe again. One evening, Susan came over with flowers and a huge smile. "You did it, Lizzy," she said proudly. "You won in every way that matters." Lizzy smiled, setting a cup of tea on the table. "It's funny," she said. "I thought revenge would be seeing him suffer, but it turns out the real revenge is peace." Susan nodded, and success. They laughed softly, clinking their tea mugs together. Later that night, Lizzy stood by the window, feeling her baby move. The night was quiet, calm. She whispered,
You know what, sweetheart? Mommy didn't just survive, she rose. Outside, the wind brushed gently against the glass, like a soft applause from the universe. Somewhere across town, Jack sat alone in his empty apartment, scrolling through the social media posts about Lizzy's growing business. Her radiant smile, her glowing strength. He whispered, almost to himself, I lost everything. But Lizzy, in her peaceful home, whispered back into the silence, no, Jack, you lost me first. It wasn't just a win in court. It was a rebirth.
On the day of her delivery, Lizzy called Susan to accompany her to the hospital and was delivered of a baby girl within 30 minutes of arrival. She held her newborn daughter against her chest, tiny, fragile, perfect. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from sadness this time, but from pure, overwhelming love. She looked down at her baby's little face and whispered, "You're my miracle, sweetheart. My reason to keep going when I thought I couldn't." The baby stirred, letting out a small sound, the first music of a brand new chapter. Susan stood nearby, smiling through happy tears. "You did it, Lizzy," she said softly. "After everything, look at you." Lizzy smiled, tired but radiant. "She's my second chance at life," she whispered. "Everything I went through led me here." Days later, Lizzy brought her baby home. The house, once filled with silence and heartbreak, now echoed with soft cries, gentle lullabies, and laughter. Every corner that once reminded her of pain now symbolized survival. The nursery walls, painted in lilac, glowed under the morning light. A wooden sign hung above the crib, painted by Lizzy herself. From broken to beautiful. Her small business had blossomed even more. Orders came in daily, along with messages from women saying, "Your story gave me courage." Each message reminded Lizzy that her pain had not been in vain. It had become her purpose. She began sharing her story online, not to shame Jack, but to help others. She spoke about strength, forgiveness, and rebuilding. About how healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet and brave. Her videos resonated deeply. Women from the US, the UK, and beyond commented, saying they felt seen, understood, and inspired. One afternoon, while rocking her baby to sleep, Lizzy looked out the window and thought about everything she'd endured. The heartbreak, the humiliation, the nights she cried silently so no one would hear. And then she thought about where she stood now, free, peaceful, loved by the life she'd created with her own two hands. She whispered more to herself than anyone else, "Revenge didn't heal me. Growth did." A week later, she visited the park for the first time with her baby. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle. She sat on a bench, watching other families laugh and play. A young woman nearby, noticing the baby, smiled and said, "She's beautiful. You must be so proud." Lizzy smiled back. "I am. She's my reminder that even the worst endings can create the most beautiful beginnings." As she spoke, she realized something. Her life was no longer defined by Jack, by pain, or by betrayal. It was defined by resilience. She wasn't just a woman who survived heartbreak. She was a woman who rose from it. And as her daughter's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, Lizzy knew she had finally found peace, not by erasing the past, but by owning it. That night, as the moonlight spilled softly across her baby's crib, Lizzy whispered one final promise. "You'll grow up knowing what strength looks like. You'll know that love doesn't hurt, that real happiness comes from within, and you'll never settle for less than you deserve." Outside, the stars shimmered quietly, witnesses to a story that began in pain but ended in power. Lizzy smiled, kissed her baby's forehead, and turned off the light. Her new life had just begun.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that strength is born from struggle. Comment in the comments what was the moment you realized your worth. And remember, heartbreak doesn't define you. How you rise from it does.